Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 113. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. And also check out my work at knac.com, where I have exclusive interviews you won't find through our streaming platforms. My guests for this episode are bassist PAT DESALVO and drummer GARNET GRIMM of the UK blues act SAVOY BROWN. On February 17th, SAVOY BROWN released their latest album, Blues All Around. It features the final studio recordings of founder, guitarist, and vocalist KIM Simmonds. Kim passed away after a brave battle with cancer on December 13th, 2022. He fronted the band for over 50 years, remaining the most constant member. Pat and Garnet are the longest tenured band members. They've been with SAVOY BROWN and Kim since 2008, 2009. Their latest album, Blues All Around, is being released by Quarto Valley Records. And here's Pat and Garnet of SAVOY BROWN to tell you more about it. Garnet, if I knew absolutely nothing about SAVOY BROWN, how would you describe the band's music to me?
I would describe it as rootsy blues rock. That's how I would describe it. Kim Simmonds started the band back in the mid-'60s and has been the only original member since then. And there's been different incarnations of the band, but it's always been a very roots-oriented band. A lot of influences there in the blues, but Kim also has been a bit of a pioneer and quite an influence on a lot of people as rock and roll grew in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I mean, a lot of bands like the Kentucky Headhunters to Judas Priest looked up to Kim and drew some influences from him. So if anybody out of your listeners are not familiar with SAVOY BROWN, you need to be. He's on the ground floor of probably a lot of the music that you enjoy.
February 17th, you guys released Blues All Around through Quarto Valley Records. It is going to be the final SAVOY BROWN album because of the passing of Kim Simmonds back in December. This is sort of the final tribute. Pat, how did you first meet Kim Simmonds?
Actually, it was in '88. I was playing a venue, and he came out to see the band. And I was going, I know that's Kim. I went over and introduced myself to him, and we started a friendship. We were friends we're friends to the end.
You worked on a lot of his solo material before joining SAVOY BROWN, right?
Yep. Actually, me and Garnet did his first solo record, '99. And then I did another one after that. And then I did a couple records where he engineered them for this gentleman, Jimmy Cavallo. And then I did, he guested on my band's record. So we had some history by the time I had been offered to start playing with him acoustically. And then once I joined the band, we had quite a bit of history at that point.
Garnet, how did you first meet Kim?
It was interesting. In 1999, I was invited to do a recording with Kim by a mutual friend. When I got there, I was kind of surprised Pat was there. And I had known Pat from the area, from other bands that he had worked in. I like to say two things came out of that day. A recording called Blues Like Midnight, which was, I think, his first acoustic record. Second one. But we had a good friendship. The three of us started a good friendship that started about that time. That continued right up till Kim passed in December. It wasn't until 2009 that Pat and I officially joined SAVOY BROWN. We had known each other for a good long while up to that point. So we had it was a nice fit for us because we're all friends anyway. So
we had recorded 2 records prior to that.
Yeah, right.
The the harp blow-offs for the Syracuse Blues
Oh, you
Fest.
and I together. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, Pat and I were
I
on
didn't even
some
think about
records
that. I
together.
forgot about that.
Mhm.
So you guys became official members of the band in the late 2000s. I would assume in the beginning, Kim did all the songwriting as you guys first kind of got your feet wet in the band. As the band progressed, did you guys get a little more involved in putting the music together?
Yeah, George. Kim would come with a basic demo. Sometimes we'd have a drum machine on there, which I asked him sometimes not to put on because it confused the hell out of me. He might even have part of a bass part, but we would come in and basically come up with our own parts. Sometimes we would use his ideas, his like blueprint that he had given us. But as far as writing went, Kim wrote all the material. That was his thing. He wrote the songs.
Kim always did all of the writing, and I mean, I'm often was shocked at how much he could write. He was, there would be days when Pat and I would get several demos, and we might listen to them and get to rehearsal. We used to rehearse on Thursdays, and Pat would say, "Ah, forget about that. I got this other idea." I mean, he was that's how he was. But I will say, Kim was very good about letting us. I mean, he had a way of bringing you into the creative process. So there was, we were able to contribute, but they were his songs. He was very good about letting us come up with our own parts. If he didn't like what he was hearing, he would tell you. And we'd often discuss about, maybe a different drum groove or something wasn't working. We'd talk about it. But for the most part, he would let you come up with what made sense to you, and we would develop the songs from there. Our songs were usually very well rehearsed. We would try new material at sound checks if we were on the road. So I think when we did the Witchy Feeling recording, Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a great deal of that album was learned on the road when we would play them at sound check, and then if it got good enough, we would kind of ease them into the set, try a song or two into the set. So that was kind of how it always went, with Kim. We always recorded live in the studio, except for this album, which it'd be good to talk about that at some point.
So going into the new album Blues All Around, Kim announced his battle with cancer in August of 2022. He announced that he had to stop touring. Was putting this album together a little more difficult than in the past because of what Kim was dealing with at the time?
Yeah, definitely. It was very difficult because there was a couple components going on here, George. One, we were recording previously with Ben Elliott at Show Play Studios, and Ben has worked with Keith Richards, Eric Clapton, Leslie West. He's worked with everybody, Peter Green, and we had a certain way we were working with him, and we did the 3 records with him. We went back to Syracuse to record with Ron Keck. Now we did, I think, like 10 albums with him. So we got 2 different studios, 2 different guys engineering, and now we're not rehearsing. Actually, I hadn't seen Garnett in almost a year, and we just went into the studio, flew up, stayed at his house, and Monday we were in the studio. Kim wasn't there the first day to do the first record. He was at the Roswell Center Cancer Institute, so he didn't come to the following day. So there was no rehearsing. Everything was different, and I just worked on parts, came up with ideas on my own, just listening to what he had given us. And then we went in and we did basically 14 tracks the first day, and I'll let Garnett continue on that.
Like Pat said, we all got demos and we studied them for a bit. So that was really different. There was some discussion about, wow, is this going to work for us? And it turned out really well. We ended up having to build the record from the ground up, so to speak. So Pat and I went in the first day. Day number 2, we played our parts over those basic demos, I thought, wow, I'm not going to feel it here. I'm not so used to having Kim playing with us, and it was okay. I think that the second day Kim came in with us, and he added some vocals and keyboards and stuff like that. And I had some percussion ideas to add, which went on later in the week. But yeah, building the record the way it did allow us to listen in a different way. I think it gave us a different perspective than what we were used to hearing. So it was kind of a neat way for us to do it. We had never done it like that, and the whole time Pat and I were nearly 14 years. We had never, we'd always recorded live. So it was definitely different for us, and it was okay. I still kind of like the live thing better, but as far as performing, I enjoy that part of it. This was a cool way to do it. It was different for me.
From a listener's perspective, I think it's a great classic blues album. It's got all the elements there that you guys have had throughout your career. It certainly came out to be a solid album, even though you didn't get to record it the way that you normally do. Obviously, you're proud of the whole thing, but Garnet, do you have any personal favorites on this Blues All Around album?
Yes, I do. Well, first of all, I do want to say to your listeners, it would be cool if you want to see, there's a lot of different styles there, and you can hear a lot of some different tonalities going on with Kim's guitars, what he was doing. There's some variety there. It's not just a bunch of blues shuffles or whatever you might think. A couple of my favorites though is Texas Love. I like the raunchy guitar part in there. I love playing those kind of shuffles, those Texas shuffles. It's just a straight ahead blues shuffle, but it's really got some interesting. It's very gritty. And my other favorite would probably be California Days Gone By because of the way it was constructed. Kim presented it to us, and the lyric didn't quite match the music. At least that was our vibe. It's about a rock band hanging out in California in the '60s, and the demo was a little bit on the countryside. So after some discussion, Pat and I got to, Kim said, well, I do remember Kim saying, I hope we can keep this song. And we were at a bit of a loss of what to do. But Pat and I just started playing grooves while the sound engineer kept his finger on record. And we just kept playing and playing until we kind of landed on something we thought would be appropriate to the lyric. And so that was kind of cool for us. We got to be creative.
Pat, what are some of your favorites from the new album?
I like Going Down South. Actually, I like almost all the tracks on the record, which is unusual for me. I think it's because of, like we were talking about earlier, George, how this could be the final record. So I like what Kim put into this, and he really, boy, I must say, he gave it a lot of thought up to the very end about how he wanted to do the record. And I do like California Days Gone By because there was, I just like I like stories. If it's a good story, the music's almost secondary, because if you can sit somewhere and hit just acoustic guitar and it says something to you, then that's really what's important. Everything else is kind of fluff. But being a bass player, you got to put a bass part down. When all this other stuff that people put on records, sometimes I just go, they're making it cluttered. Sometimes I think that silence can be deafening. And that's one thing that me and Garnet and Kim really worked on as a trio, is really defining our sound and making it sound full. You don't overplay. You play for the song. And I felt we did it on all the tracks on this one. I was pretty happy with it.
It's Blues All Around is being released on Quarto Valley Records, which is a big supporter of the blues.
Right.
Deborah Bonham's band comes to mind as far as other acts on the label. How did you guys first hook up with this label?
We had a friend in New York, Arnie Goodman, that suggested because we had done quite a few records with Roof, and that was a good relationship, but Kim had there was a decision to be made, to try and do something else. You can do things, you can use the same studio, for a while, but sometimes it's good to change things up. So that's basically how it happened. And they came up with a good deal for us. And that was it. We decided to go with it. We'll see what happens. At that time, Witchy Feeling was #1 on Billboard, or hit #1. It was doing really good. And there was several other labels that approached us to come over, and Kim settled on that one, and that was it. So I think it was a good fit for him at that point.
I would like to say we should say congratulations to Quarto Valley, because they were involved with the Edgar Winter.
Oh, yeah.
They just won a Grammy
with Edgar Winter, yeah. And they got the Immediate Family Band and Paul Rogers, which are, pretty impressive to me. It's hard doing a record now, George. It's just so, there's no more record stores. Everything's online, and it's kind of diminished what the record is to people. It's so it's so replaceable. Before you had your record, you could look at the liner notes and you had something in your hands that was very tangible. You could open it up and go into another world. It was almost like having a book sometimes. For me, you look at the pictures and look at the pictures of the guys in the band. Now, I can't read the liner notes on any of the records. I need a
magnifying glass.
glass.
I was gonna say a monocle. I need a monocle on my glasses. You look at I don't know how you feel about it. I look at the liner notes and go like, I got my glasses. I'm like, I still can't. I don't know who the hell played on this. It's like, it's kind of funny. What are the lyrics? I miss records. What's your thought on records, George?
Well, it appears that vinyl is starting to make a comeback.
Yes.
It's making a comeback with people my age and younger people. I'm not sure younger people are buying it for the music or for the thing to hold, but I feel like with CDs, I feel like the industry is going to ruin it by jacking up the price as it becomes more popular, because in the beginning you could get a vinyl for around $20-$25. Now I'm seeing them like $50, and the album was released 40 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a money grab.
Yeah.
It's a money grab. And I understand, but the business could, when we have a friend that Ernie, and he saw Napster, and that's when I believe he decided, I better sell my business, his record store he had. This ain't going to be around. I remember calling Kim on that. I go, Kim, I'm downloading your records. He goes, what do you mean? I go, there's this thing Napster my kid showed me, and I go, I can get all your records. It's like, and then I did it, and then I felt guilty because I was going like, well, this is how people make money, and this is how record labels can support other artists. And all of a sudden it was like, it just made music really disposable. It's like, well, anybody can put a record out. You got these, I don't want to get into this, but these shows that, you become a star type thing, and it doesn't work that way. And hardly anybody does. They go on these TV shows and they don't have that much of a career. They won't have a career. Very rarely will have a career like Kim's or anybody like Elvin Lee or Humble Pie. Any of those guys, where it's 57 years later, their records are still out there, and they're validated. They're still, boy, they could play and they could sing and they wrote their songs. I thought it was ironic when Bonnie Raitt won this year that they made the comment, this is the first time somebody's won Best Songwriter when they were the sole songwriter. Last time was Amy Whitehouse. It's like, yeah, I wonder why. Well, I don't want to go off. I go off on this stuff. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? It's like, people spend time learning an instrument, and they spend time practicing with the band, and they do all this stuff. Then you got a guy there with a laptop. I just did 8 records today. That's great. You sampled 8 records. Okay.
Mm.
You might want to edit stuff, George. I don't know.
Well, listen, you're not the only one that has vented about the industry and
Oh,
consumers and stuff like that. I completely agree with you, but I think that people got tired of just having something non-tangible to listen to. Yes,
yeah.
streaming is convenient, and you want
Yes.
to listen to a song on demand, you can, but I think people like the memory that's behind the physical thing. So, like,
Mhm.
you tour to sell a record. So if you sell a
Right.
record at the tour, people have that and they say, hey, this is when I went to see Savoy Brown.
Exactly. And that's why we used to do the meet and greet. And another thing I used to say at the show was, you've come here because you have a good memory. We want to give you another memory when you leave. When you leave this week, we want you to bring think about the show through the week if something comes up and you're having a bad day, and that's what the whole concept of music is. It's not, I don't know. I don't like when it becomes so trite,
So you guys toured a lot in your career. Garnet, how was it trying to pick a set list to kind of honor a 50 long year career?
Yeah, that was always a tough one. It was tough. I kind of worked close with Kim on those set lists quite often, actually, because it's interesting you asked me because I was the set list guy. That was one of my jobs. Yeah, I think very often Kim had an idea where he understood that people wanted to hear some of the older stuff, but he still wanted to be relevant and play some of the, stuff he just created. So often we might start the set with a newer song from the record that we were touring to support. But then very quickly, I mean, he would go into, he would take you in the past, and you'd hear several of the classics right in a row. But then he would finish the set usually with newer material. So he was pretty well round. He was aware of that. But Kim was definitely one of those guys that he had enough songs, and if you didn't play some of those songs, you might hear about it at the merch table. you know, I showed up. The reason I'm here is because I wanted to hear "Tell Mama," and you did not
Yeah.
play it. And you'd have to talk them. You'd have to talk them down. For whatever reason. It is tough when you got 40, almost 50 records. That you recorded. It's tough. Which ones do we play tonight? So
Yeah. We had a big book, that's for sure.
I always thought Pat and I were lucky because we got to, play with Kim at a time, where he was creating new music. We got to play on all of the newer music and contribute to that. But we also got to play the old stuff that was that Savoy Brown became well known for. So I have to say that was a hoop for me being able to play some of that stuff. And I mean, some people. I remember the drummer from George Thorogood was at one of our shows one time, and we actually got him up to play, and he played "Tell Mama." Remember, Pat?
Yeah.
And I remember he said to me, "I've always wanted to play that song." He said, and I felt lucky because I got to play it a lot.
And Roger would come and sit in too. That was always fun.
Yeah, Roger Earl from FOGHAT, and he would come in sometimes and he would play "I'm Tired," which I think he recorded. So.
Yep.
I was actually going to ask if Roger Earl ever sat in with you guys.
Oh yeah, bunch. He got us out with our agency. Him and Linda got us. We got an agent. We got a good agent. We got that agency Paradise through Roger and Linda, and that really helped us. And then we really started doing really good in Europe. I mean, we started drawing because when we first went there, it was kind of sparse, but man, all of a sudden it was like we're pack and play. I remember one time, I think we were in Bremen, Germany, and Kim goes, "When are we going to go on?" And I go up. I couldn't even move, and I'm yelling to the guy, "When are we going to go on?" He goes, "There's many people that have bought their tickets and they must get in." I'm like, and I went down. I go, I don't know what the hell's going on. We're going to put anybody, but yeah, we started playing the bigger rooms, especially in Munich. I noticed that, but yeah, we started really draw. It was great that was happening too, because we really felt we were accomplishing something. Because the United States is so big, and to really serve the whole United States, there just me, Garnett, and Kim, and Kim's wife Debbie would help us out with logistics, but we don't have a big machine, So it was really tough. But we had a good agent, we had a good promoter in over in Europe, and halfway decent guy over in the UK. We started really doing good in the UK too. It was good because I think it validated Kim, that he was doing good again. We're doing good. We had people coming to the shows and they were really having a great time. So what more do you want as a musician? You can't ask for anything more.
Going backwards just a little bit, have you ever had Roger on your show from Fox?
I had Charlie Hune.
Oh, you had Charlie. Yeah. Oh, Roger is a sweetheart. They're all great guys.
He's a character. There's a lot of history there, boy. He could tell you some stories.
Oh, I know.
I think he dated Bridget Bardot or something. Seriously.
Yeah.
Charlie Hune or
no,
Earl?
Roger.
Yeah, okay.
Someone was telling me a story about him. I said, what? That Roger.
Charlie's got a pretty good story too, right? Didn't he play with Ted Nugent and something?
Yeah.
He played with Nugent, then he went on and played with Victory in Germany, and then he was playing with Humble Pie, and now he's with Foghat. Yeah,
he's got a great voice. Yeah,
absolutely. What are the chances of a tribute concert in honor of Kim?
If I answer that, I would say it's possible. I think I would like to see that sometime. I think it's a little bit early for us to talk about that. It's still a little too fresh for everybody, Kim's passing. But yeah, it would be something that would be cool to do, to see happen. There's certainly not going to be a shortage of people who would like to do that. To get people involved with it. There was a lot of people that really looked up to Kim, thought of him as an influence. So I would probably think it would be a pretty cool show if you could get everybody on the same page. Trying to hook everybody up. That's another thing. But yeah, I mean, we've met quite a few people along the way that Kim really, that people that I had no idea. To give you an example, we played the Rock Legends cruise a couple of times, but I can't remember which cruise this was that the Doobie Brothers were on. But they came, we were playing our set, and they were all hanging to the side of the stage watching, and wanted to talk to Kim afterwards, and we all got to meet them, and they were very friendly folks. And I learned that day, I didn't know, but I think the first tour, one of the first tours anyway, that the Doobie Brothers did was with Savoy Brown. And so they looked up to Kim as an influence and realized that Savoy Brown helped them in their own pursuits. And so it was cool.
Yeah, to add to that, I found out like David Lee Roth covered 3 Savoy Brown songs on his solo record, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then like Richie Sambora covered Hellbound Train, and Government Mule recently just covered Street Corner Talking. I think Great White covered a song, and I
think the Kentucky Headhunters did.
Yeah, and Charlie Musselwhite. That was interesting.
There's been a lot of people. Yeah, the rock band Great White. Yeah, they did. I'm tired. No,
did they do I'm Tired?
No. What was the one they did? They did one of the songs that was they would play quite often, and I didn't realize that until somebody came up to me one time and said, I saw Great White do that. Is that Kim's song? And I said, yeah. I didn't know Great White did it.
So, Pat, is Blues All Around the definitive last album we will see from Savoy Brown, or is there other material out there that could possibly see the light of day?
There's a lot of material out there, and we just were talking about this. There's a lot of songs that we recorded at Kim's place that never made it to a record. And there's some really strong demos out there that we did that never made it to the record, and stuff he just recorded. And actually there's some live stuff he wanted me to track down. One thing we did at Sirius, but those were already released. But there's material out there. It would be very tough though without having his hand actually on it. But you never, I don't know, George. It could happen. It'd have to be done the right way, though. I wouldn't want to do anything and just to do it. Yeah, there's a guy I know in Europe he would come out and record us all the time, but they would be, stuff that we've already done. But he's got tape after tape of live shows from us for years. Be interesting to see some of that stuff. And me and Garnett, we were lucky because we really grew as musicians being with him, because we rehearsed and there was a certain level that we had to obtain with him. We really grew, and that's why the band grew, and it really, I know it got Kim going too, because now the band sounded really good all the time, and we were really easy to work with. So he came out with, we've done 7 studio records with him, and not including the acoustic stuff. And then we did 2 live records and 2 DVDs. We did quite a bit of output of material came out recently, and he did have songs. And ironically, one of them keeps popping up on my phone all the time out of the blue. He sent me a bunch of demos. He was, because he was thinking, I'm going to do another record. I'm not going to let this beat me. Yeah, it would be. I don't know, George. We'll see. Time will tell. Time does tell. Yeah, he had a lot of material. He was really, he was a very prolific guy. He was a good artist. If you go to the SavoyBrown.com, you can see his artwork there. He was a Renaissance man. And he wasn't phony at all. I'd have to pull his teeth. Now I knew him over 30 something years. I'd have to pull his teeth about who he played with and what shows he did. Garnett was talking about this earlier, but he really didn't talk about that stuff, and we would travel sometimes. We'd be in a plane together for hours, get off, get into another plane, get into a car. We'd have these drives that would last 10 hours sometimes. Love the routing. Pre-Paradise, but he just really didn't talk about himself that much. You really had to pull it out of him. He was, like I said, a very humble man. He was a good guy.
Garnett, what's next for you in the music world?
Oh, well, I'm glad you to answer that question. And we can lead this in from a Savoy Brown gig. What happened was, several years back, we were at a festival in Iowa, and there was a gentleman there who had played ahead of us, but he hung out and wanted to see the band, and then he wanted to meet Kim, and it was Sean Chambers. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean. He's a guitar player and songwriter from Florida. Kim and Sean actually did become somewhat friends, and they would talk occasionally, and it became aware, obviously, that Kim wasn't going to be able to tour last year, and Sean was putting a tour together in Europe, and he graciously asked Pat and I if we wanted to be involved with it, with Kim's blessing. So we talked to Kim about it, and Kim said, "Yeah, sure, man, go for it." And things are starting to develop with Sean, and Sean is also on Quarto Valley Records. So we're label mates, and we're hoping to do some recording with Sean and maybe get this thing going and continue on. In fact, I'm getting ready to fly down to see Pat in just a couple of days. We have a gig, so looking forward to it. But Sean's a great guitar player and very good songwriter, and check him out. He's out there. So But it was fun. I do have to say, we did a tour with him in October of Europe, and we would often once or twice a week, the four of us, Sean and the three of us, would gather around the phone and talk with Kim, and Kim was always full of advice and wanted to know where we were. Oh yeah, I remember that place and that kind of stuff. So it was cool.
Yeah, it was good. It was weird not having him next to us though, looking over and seeing somebody else. It's, play with somebody that long.
Well, at least you have this fine tribute to him, Blues All Around. It's out now on Quarto Valley Records. Those are all the questions I have for you tonight, guys. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and it was fun learning about Savoy Brown and Kim Simmons and all the fun times you guys had together.
We should have came to your place. We could have had a beer.
Oh, that's all whiskey, man. So
Whiskey? Really? God damn it. It's a Zoom thing on a phone. That's all whiskeys?
yeah, that's like 30 or 40 bottles of whiskey.
Really?
Ooh. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I wish you the best of luck in your new ventures.
Thank you, my friend.
Once again, I want to thank PAT DESALVO and Garnet Grimm of Savoy Brown for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Blues All Around, featuring the final recordings of the great Kim Simmons, out now through Quarto Valley Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming app, take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artists. For all things Savoy Brown, head over to their official website, SavoyBrown.com. I also want to thank John Lappin of Lappin Enterprises for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon.